Thanks, Michelle.
Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be presenting with you today. I see several people in my gallery view that I recognize from many in-person ACA conferences. I've presented multiple times at all regional ACA conferences as well as the national conference as well. So it's good to see you all in this odd time in history. So I've delivered this staff training workshop at several ACA conferences. So you might have seen some of these live and in person. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show some of the things that you can do virtually with your staff. And then also, you can also see how you can do it live in person, because some of you might be doing live training still, and others of you might be doing more of a virtual platform. So I'm going to kind of demonstrate both and share with you some of the value that you can do in either format, whether it be virtually or in person. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started with my slide deck here. Go into presentation mode here. And here we go. All right, so for those of you that have not met me before, I'm Michelle Cummings with Training Wheels. I own and operate this little company that I started 21 years ago when I couldn't find a job that I liked, so I made one up. I thought, I'm pretty good at making up games. Maybe I'll make up a job and maybe it'll work for me. So 21 years later, I've authored several books in the team building field, and I love doing team development, team building work, and really helping people create those connections that are so important. And I love to teach experientially. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you some of the activities that you can do that surface the behaviors that you might already be wanting to cover in your staff training, but you can do it through an activity. And so if your staff get the opportunity to play and experience something first, then there's a lot of good brain research that shows that they'll actually remember it more later if they're able to be engaged in the learning. So today, really the outcome for this hour is to just introduce activities to you that you can do either in person or virtually. And I'm going to demonstrate how you can use experiential activities to surface behaviors. So ideally, my goal for you at the end of this is for you to look at your staff training curriculum and pick out a few things that you already, all those boxes that you have to check, the mandatory ones you have to check, and then go, how can I look at that and be able to pop in a game or an activity of some sort that might surface that box that I have to check in an activity or a game. And I'm going to share with you several of my favorites that are pretty easy to do that with. So for me, one of the catchphrases that I use at Training Wheels often is that you need to create connection before you dive into content. So any way that you can, in this virtual format, create a way for people to take your first few minutes of your Zoom call or your meeting or whatever it is that whatever platform you're using, and creates a way for people to chat and get to know one another and things like that, especially if you're bringing in staff from all over the world, or if they're coming in from different areas that have never met one another before. So one thing is just create your icebreaker questions and prompts in your right into your slide deck. So now I created a couple for the camp industry, and all of these images are free for you to download on our Pinterest page. So so just search for Training Wheels Pinterest page or virtual team building activities with Training Wheels in it, and you'll be able to find all the images that I created. So this one here, just if you've got these chat room or the breakout room options, then you can invite. You've got a small group, you can just invite participants to take turns answering the questions, or if you've got a large group of staff, just send them into the breakout rooms for 3 to 5 minutes or so. You can have them screenshot the questions, or you can email them to people ahead of time. But like your favorite campfire activity, what's your favorite sweet treat, your favorite camping activity, your best camp meal is, or what's your favorite item that you plan to bring to camp or take to camp or something like that. So I just went on to some of these images I purchased from a stock image place, or you can also go to, there are 2 websites you can go to that have more that have free, copyright free images, and one is unsplash.com and the other is, I think it's pixabay.com. So if you there's also opportunities to download handouts. I put a link in the chat box that has some handouts that you can go and download for free, and those links are in there in those handouts as well. So just, again, creating a few minutes for connection before you dive into your content can be really helpful. All right, as if. This is a picture here of an activity that I did at National ACA, and it is my favorite staff training tool and the easiest for you to custom design this to fit into your existing curriculum. So this one here, basically you invite all your participants to find a partner and then stand about 5 to 6 feet away from him. Now this is of course in the live version. I'm going to share with you how you tweak it to make it into a virtual version in just a second. So, and then after they have a partner, you ask them to walk forward and greet their partner as if they were, and then you give them a role that you want them to play out. And then you have them stay in the role for about 60 seconds or so. And then after they're finished, then you ask them to physically separate and stand about 5 to 6 feet away from one another again. So now the different roles you pick are roles that are things that happen at camp that maybe your staff have no idea that this is something that they have to prepare for, or something that this may happen at camp. And so it is one of my favorites to surface these things that show up at camp every once in a while. So, so for example, I've got a quick video that shows people actually playing this activity, and then I'll share with you how you tweak it and change it for the if you all of a sudden have all right, I'm going to actually fast forward because where I want to start is actually about right here. So here we go. And then stand about 5 or 6 feet away from your partner, facing them. Okay. The name of this activity is called As If. All right. So what's going to happen here in a moment is I'm going to give you a role that I would like you to play out with your partner. And you're going to walk towards your partner and greet them as if you were in this role that I'm about to give you. Okay. Now I want you to stay in that role for about 60 seconds. And then when you hear my clicker go off, then that means that round is over. And then you will physically separate and get back into this position that you're standing in right now. For this first interaction, go ahead and greet your partner as if you were long lost college roommates. Ready to go. Go ahead and separate, stand about 6 feet away from your partner. Okay, so tell me about that interaction. What was that interaction like? It was fun. It was fun. It was lively. Was there anyone not excited to see their college roommate? Right? Because some of us have those, right? We're like, you just choose not to find each other on Facebook, maybe. No, but usually this first interaction that I do with this activity, I pick something light and fun. When you're an adult group, you can use long lost college roommate, right? If you're in a kid group, you're going to pick something that's more kid related, right? Like it's your first time seeing your best friend in school after you haven't seen them all summer, or something like that, or a long lost cousin. The beauty of this activity is that it's role playing, and most people out in the world, myself included, hate role plays, right? Especially when it's the fishbowl kind of role play, when everyone's watching my acting skills and things like that. So what I love about this, it is 60 seconds worth of role play. Everyone's doing it at the exact same time. Nobody is really watching my acting skills, and yet we're still surfacing some behaviors. This one here was surfacing, just fun and greeting and meeting people. So if you have any behavior that you need to surface in your program, do it through a little role play. All right, so that is that's the basic how it works in the live and in-person format. Now in the virtual format, what you would do is you actually just send people into breakout rooms and give them some of these same roles to do. If you're using the Zoom platform, you can send the different roles by message into the different chat rooms, or you can have everybody in there for a few minutes, then have them bring them back, and then do a quick debrief with everybody. After each role, I usually stop and ask, what was that experience like? Or share with me a little bit what that interaction went with you and your partner. And so, so here's some ones that I do with homesick camper or with my staff, is that I will have one of them be a homesick camper, and then the other person be the camp counselor. So And I usually have the camper be whatever age that particular counselor is. So I have them just, talk a little bit ahead of time, like, hey, I'm going to work with middle schoolers. I'm like, all right. Then the other person would role play homesick middle schooler. And so, and then you can customize that for whatever you want. Or maybe it could be delivering feedback to a parent. Maybe you work for a day camp and you've got parents that pick up their kids every day. And so your frontline staff are also the ones that are going to be delivering some feedback to a parent, maybe about a behavior that popped up in their camper that day or something like that. And, I think a lot of us, a lot of camps, your frontline staff are sometimes between the ages of 18 and 25, 26. And a lot of people in that age range, for some of them, it could be that this is their first professional job they've ever had. And a lot of them in that age range don't have their own children yet. And then, of course, we put them in charge of 10-year-olds all at one time, right? So this whole delivering feedback to a parent, some of them have never had to do that before. So if you have something in your curriculum that shares with them, like, here's how to chat with parents, when you have to deliver some hard feedback sometimes. For some people, that is going to terrify them. They're like, I didn't know I signed up for that, right? So doing it in a little 1 minute to 90-second interaction in the activity, now all of a sudden, they're probably going to have questions that they didn't even know they had prior to doing this little activity. Or how about a conflict with a co-counselor or other staff member? Do you guys have any conflict on your staff ever pop up? You don't? Oh, okay, we'll skip that one then. I'm just kidding. Of course we do, right? And so one thing that I like to share with them at the very beginning is that, you know what, throughout the summer, there's going to be times other people on staff are going to get totally on your nerves. And that's okay. It's natural. It's normal. We've got to be good role models, especially if the conflict happens in front of other campers. But then also just recognize that sometimes those conflicts pop up because we just have different behavior preferences. And I have an activity that I'm going to share with you in a little bit about that. So those are just some examples of things that you could do. I'm sure now your brain's buzzing, and I hope you're writing down notes right now around what are some other things. So usually when I do this activity, I usually do 3 or 4 at a time, and then we actually then dive into content. So what's great about it, it's a non-prop activity, and it really only takes about 10 minutes or so to do it. So even if you've looked at let's say you've got your staff training going on for a couple hours in the morning, do 10 minutes, surface surface behaviors around 3 things that you're about to teach in your curriculum. And then now they've experienced it in their bones, and they're going to probably lean into the training a little bit differently and hear what you're saying because now they've experienced it a little bit. And then, take a quick break, an hour and a half later, take a quick break, and then pop in with 3 more, and now surface the ones that you're going to do in the next hour and a half of your training. So it's such a good activity that is really simple to lead, and it's awesome. I love it. So, all right, now we're going to dive into comfort zones a little bit. And so creating a safe environment and comfort zones, for me, I think kind of go hand in hand a little bit. But really, when we are designing a training for our staff, then again are going to be working with campers, we want to try to design an environment that will allow for optimal learning. So with that, we've got to keep people physically safe as well as emotionally safe. Both of those are critical elements of a safe environment. Because when people feel emotionally safe, they are just in general, humans, we are driven by curiosity. And when we are curious, it leads to exploration, and more people are willing to take risks if I feel that my needs are being taken care of, or if I feel like I have choice in some matter. So what I like to do with this activity is I use some sort of bullseye. Now in the virtual format, I've got this built out, in my slide deck with the different zones, but I'm going to show you ways that you can do it virtually as well. But basically, the 3 zones, the comfort zone, this is where you feel comfortable and safe. Routines are easy for me. You possess all the skills that you need to perform tasks in that. The stretch zone is the next ring out of the bullseye, where you're doing something new, you're allowing yourself to learn, you're feeling energized, you're willing to take risks, but it's outside of what you know really well. It's now I'm stepped into the stretch zone. And the danger zone, or this panic zone, is where sometimes you are just utterly paralyzed by fear and you can't think straight. And your brain goes into fight or flight mode, and your frontal cortex gets hijacked by that fight or flight response. and literally we can't make good decisions for ourselves here. So I like to bring this up and teach this to staff so that sometimes when they are presenting challenges to kids, that they understand that sometimes a kid might be saying, no, I don't want to do that for some reason, because maybe they're in this panic zone or this danger zone, and not just because they're being difficult. So so here's a quick video of this live and in person, and I'll share with you how I tweak it and change it for the virtual world.
When you are talking about creating that safe environment for participants, I sometimes will use this language here, to where usually when everyone shows up to a program, everybody's in their comfort zone, or maybe even yesterday before you came to the program. Your comfort zone is everything that you're good at. These are the skills that you already have, things that are comfortable to you, things that are easy for you to share about yourself with other people. And then usually throughout the program, I'm going to ask people to probably step outside of your comfort zone a little bit into this stretch zone. So for you, what would be some words that you would describe? What are some words that come to mind when you think about your comfort zone? What would they be? Relaxed, low risk, okay? Safe. Yeah, those are all things that kind of happen in your comfort zone. What about if I asked you to step outside of that comfort zone just a little bit into what I call the stretch zone? What are some words you might associate with the stretch zone?
Slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah, slightly uncomfortable. Okay. Stress a little bit. Yeah. Anxious. Isn't it nice how all the words are right there around the outside too, if you look, right? So, and then what about the danger zone? What are some words that might be associated with, if you got a little bit too far outside your comfort zone? What are some words associated with that? Yeah, fearful, right? Panic. Could be the panic zone or the danger zone, right? What else did you say? Unsafe, yeah. So in any of the programs that I do, whether you're asking people to take a physical risk or an emotional risk, I always tell people, it's like, today I'm going to ask you, I'm probably going to present some challenges to you that are going to have you step outside your comfort zone a little bit, out here into what I call the stretch zone. There is nothing that we're going to do today that is worth anybody going to the danger zone, right? Because out here in the danger zone, no new learning takes place. When you are in the danger zone and you are in a panic place, this is where fight or flight happens in your brain. And you literally sometimes do not have the capability to make good decisions for yourself when you're in the danger zone. So nothing is worth going here today. But I'm going to ask you throughout the program to think about and experience the stretch zone. Stretch yourself in some way today, emotionally, you know, or just doing something a little bit different that maybe you haven't done before. Try on a new skill, speak up in front of a group or something like that, that might stretch you a little bit. But I don't want you to do anything that will push you into the danger zone. So if I ask you to do something that you think that it's a little bit too much for you, then just feel free to say, I'm not willing to go there. And that's totally okay with me. Nothing is worth going to the danger zone. So these are kind of the language and things that I use when I'm talking to participants about what I'm expecting of them throughout the day and you know what we're going to do. So before I made this really cool fun tarp, I used to just use 3 different ropes of various colors. What 3 colors are represented here that you can recognize? Stoplight, right? So the green is go, right? That's my comfort zone. Yellow is like, careful, a little bit caution here. Red is no way, stop. So you could just use it to talk about the day, right? And just like, please step into the stretch zone at some point in time today. Or if you want, I've actually just come up with some different scenarios that you could have people do, so that we also see that people have different levels of comfort with different things. So I have a couple cards here. One is for physical safety things and one is for emotional safety things. So let's just do a couple of them. We'll all start on the outside of the tarp, and then I'm going to read off a couple of these, and then feel free to step into whether that would be your comfort zone, your stretch zone, or your danger zone for you. If you even see one of the words around the circle, like, oh, that totally makes me feel this or whatever, you can even go stand on the word that you might be experiencing with that, okay? All right, any questions on what we're doing? Which, by the way, that's something else I ask almost all the time when I'm facilitating too. Give the directions and then ask if you have any questions. All right, riding in a car without a seatbelt on. Would that put you in your comfort zone, your stretch zone, or your danger zone?
Yeah, I was just going to say.
All right. So, so this concept of the comfort zones and stretch zone and the danger zone is one that I present to staff often, just so that they've got some common language to use around it, and they can also use that with campers as well. Sometimes campers, they have these feelings, we don't know what to do with them. So if they can help put some language around them, that can be great. So from a virtual point of view, what I do if you're delivering this virtually is, now I use the Zoom platform often, but what I have them do is I use their annotation buttons. When you're the host and you let people, when you've shared your screen, they can use their annotation buttons to put their name anywhere on that tarp. So, or on that graphic here on my slide. So I have them use the text button to type their name into a text box, and then they place that text box where they would be on the bullseye, where they would place themselves for the different scenarios. So I usually start out with a couple of physical risks, like this one here, riding in a car without your seatbelt on. So just as you saw in the video, there were some people that were in their comfort zone, and there were some people in their danger zone on that. And so what I like about the activity is that it gives you good perspective, that just because something is easy for me does not mean it's going to be easy for somebody else. And so it builds empathy and perspective in a group in a really cool way. So, and usually once I have people place themselves, then I kind of interview. I at least ask one person from each of the zones, tell me what places you hear in your comfort zone. I see you here in your stretch zone. What places you hear on this particular topic? And now tell me about danger zone. And so I pick usually one from each of the zones, and then I move and go into the next one. How about walking along the edge of a cliff? Would that put you in your comfort zone, your stretch zone, or your danger zone? Or you could, and this here just shows you how you can totally customize this for whatever you're not, like shopping at the grocery store, knowing there's a confirmed COVID-19 case in your area right now. So this is an example of how you could customize it for your training and whatever you want to do in a way that is relevant. So, and then usually I start with emotional risk, and then I go to, or I'm sorry, I start with physical risk, and then I go to emotional risk. Singing a song in front of a group of people. Some people, I mean, I'm sure many of you that are in charge of songs at camp, this is your comfort zone. This is your happy place. This is like so cool for you. Other people are like, no way, man, I am off the chart on this one. So sharing stories about your family, or even facilitating virtual team building activities for your staff training. Is that going to put you in your comfort zone, your stretch zone, or your danger zone? So anyway, so you can see this is how you can do this in a virtual format, still get to some of the same things that you would talk about with your staff, but in a way that is done in the virtual space. All right, I'm going to, let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and clear annotations on this one. I have those kind of mad power here, and then I'm going to stop sharing that. There we go. Okay. All right. So, so now here's that big tarp, and it's awesome if you have access to something like that. But if not, we also created the tabletop version of this. So, so that way, then you can do it around a table. People can point with their finger or using avatars. You see, there's a bunch of like toys and things like that in the center of that. Then you could also have them each pick something that they would like to represent them and place that on the tarp. You could also just with a piece of flip chart paper, just draw on the 3 different zones, and you could put it on the table just like that, or you could use rope circles on the floor. So this is an easy one to do in person, like you've seen here, or you can do it virtually as well, like you saw. All right, pair tag. This is just a fun, easy tag game that is a non-prop game, and you can use it with small groups or large groups. And what I love about this one is that if I'm trying to teach my staff, how do we make sure we keep kids physically safe? I like to do it in a game to where you surface it in a game to where now, if they get an example of what it's like in a game, then they're going to understand it a little bit better. So I'm going to share this pair tag activity with you because A, it's super fun, and B, it is a great way to show your participants what happens if you don't control the speed and pace in which people are playing, and it might create an unsafe environment for kids.
We're going to play a game called pair tag. First, I need you to find a partner. So, lost and found, find a partner and stand next to your partner. Okay. And then I will be someone's partner. Okay, you're going to be playing tag with just this person. Okay, whoever your partner is, you're going to be playing tag with them. okay? Now our boundaries are just this small area right here, okay? So what's gonna happen, first you need to decide who's gonna be it first and who's gonna be tagged first, okay? So decide that now. I'll be it first, okay, because we're gonna demonstrate, okay? So here's what's gonna happen. In a minute, I'm gonna start a countdown from 3, 2, 1. As soon as I say go, now during the 3, 2, 1, whoever is being tagged first, that is your opportunity to get away from the person that is going to be your tagger, okay? So now this is a walking game, okay? So say that with me, please. This is a walking game. Excellent. So everyone understands that this is a walking game, okay? When I start that countdown, 3, 2, 1, and the person that's being tagged starts walking away, as soon as I say go, then the person who's it can start walking after the person that they are tagging. If I say 3, 2, 1, go, and he starts to walk away from me, as soon as I catch him and I tag him, he becomes it. You have to do a full 360 before you can come after me. And in that 360, that is my opportunity to get away from the person, from Chad, who's now it, okay? And then as soon as if he were to tag me, now I become it again. I have to do a 360 before I start walking after him again, okay? Now we're only gonna play for about 2 minutes, and you'll be surprised at how tired you are in a 2-minute time period just by walking around in a circle, but I promise you, you'll be tired. All right, now that everyone knows the rules, is there anyone that needs to maybe step out of the activity for any physical reasons? If so, let me know, and then I'll pair you up with Chad. Everyone's good? All right, ready? Any questions before we go? 3, 2, 1, go. I just need to ask the question. Did everyone remember the rule that it's a walking game, right? I bring this game up from the physical safety point of view because even if you tell people it's a walking game, when you're playing tag, your speed will take over and you will stop following the walking rule. But as the facilitator, it's still my responsibility to keep the room physically safe. Because how many of you had little tiny collisions with someone else in the room just at a quote unquote walking pace, right? If we were running, there would be massive injuries. This is an activity that I do. Phase 1, I say walking. Nobody ever walks, right? And so this is a great opportunity for me now as a facilitator to say, okay, great. We have a responsibility to keep everybody safe today. Nothing is worth getting hurt over today, physically or emotionally. We're gonna play this game again. However, this time, I'm gonna control the way that we move. Because walking, when we say that, it's hard not to pick up your pace. So this time, when you are it, and when you are being tagged, both people will do this. The way that you're going to be moving is heel-toe walking, okay? Now, heel-toe walking, it's very difficult to go really, really fast when you are heel-toe walking. So that will help slow down the pace, keep everybody physically safe. So decide who's gonna be it first and who's going to be the tagged first. You be it first this time, okay? 3, 2, 1, go. And stop.
All right, so you can see how different that game played out just by changing the way people moved. So again, that's another one where it just is a great example. They've lived at their bones. Now they also have a game that they can play with their kids later that is simple. You could also do it with small groups. You can do it with large groups. It's non-prop, and it's a great way. Now they're going to understand, why do we not run when we're doing things like that? Because boom, there would be collisions. We would have injuries, and camp is not fun when we have injuries, right? So it's just a simple way to help create a way for people to understand how to keep the environment safe and to really be thoughtful about the games that we're playing to make sure that we're maintaining that safe environment for people. All right, so
Hey Michelle, it's
Yeah.
Carrie popping in here. Someone asked in the chat, going back to the comfort zone game,
yeah.
is that mat available for purchase
It
anywhere?
is, yeah, we do carry that on our online store. So at Training Wheels, we have a website, an online store. We have over 350 different activities and books and things like that that we sell on our site. So you're welcome to go and check that out. And at the very end, I can try to throw a link to it. But if you just go to training-wheels.com, or even here, I'll just do it right now. trainingwheelsgear.com will take you right. Oops. I meant that to go to everybody. You can go and that's not happening. Okay. But if you go to right to trainingwheelsgear.com, then you can just do a quick search for comfort zone and it'll find it there. So, all right. So behavior management tools. So keeping in mind that that concept of the stoplight. This is also something that I use in my staff training when I'm working with camp staff all the time, is that the 3 colors on the stoplight can also be used for metaphors for behaviors. And so the green light could be, what are you doing well? The yellow light could represent what you need to be careful of, and then the red light can be what do you need to stop doing. And I utilize this metaphor, this tool with staff to talk about there are times where we're going to have harder conversations with kids. And sometimes those kids that are used to hearing those hard conversations are used to being stopped and told to, redirect and different things like that. They're used to hearing that message. So what I like about the metaphor of the stoplight is that I'm still going to stop and have that conversation with you. But what I love about the stoplight is it also builds in this, the other 2 things. Maybe it's something I need to be careful of. And then what are they doing well that you want them to continue doing? So it means that I'm still going to have that stop conversation, but I'm also going to share with you things that you're doing well. And so I use this, usually at camp, there's all kinds of, in your craft tent or your craft room, something like that, you've got pony beads galore. So this is something that I usually equip staff with during staff training is I give everybody a little keychain splitter ring and 3 beads that represent the 3 different colors on the stoplight. And then I let them just use that with them all summer long and have them stop and if you ever have them put it on their water bottle or on their lanyard or something, and that way then if they do have to stop in the middle of an activity even and have a hard conversation with a group about their behavior, about a group behavior, they've got this readily available tool to them that will help kind of manage that situation. And kids also understand the concept of the stoplight. Anybody that's ridden in a car, even to get to camp, they've ridden in a car, they understand at least the basic concept of the stoplight. So it's an easy metaphor to work with. So, so that's another one. Here's another one that I like to do is role modeling and sharing with your staff mirror neurons and the concept that campers will absolutely follow everything you do rather than what you say. They will be looking to you as their leader and they will do everything that you do. I'm actually gonna pause, share for a moment and come back into the live view so everybody can see me real quick. So when I'm talking about, I always like to introduce the concept of mirror neurons with my staff around how the human brain, we are wired to follow the behavior that we see other people do. And so I have a quick activity that I like to do during staff training. So if you want to show your cameras for just a brief moment, you can if you want to participate in this activity. And then set your screen to gallery views so you can see lots of other people doing this activity with you as well. So in a minute, what I'm going to have everybody do is everybody go ahead and make the OK sign with your hand, if you will. And you need to be able to see me. So make sure that you've got my screen kind of up as well. But what I want everyone to do is just reinforcing that concept that people will do what you do rather than what you say. Okay, so everyone take that OK sign that you've made there with your hand and just put it right on your chin. All right, now how many people, most people's chins are down here. So how many of you followed what I did rather than what I said? I saw a lot of you totally follow what I do, right? And isn't that crazy? Literally, the words just came out of my mouth. People will follow what you do rather than what you say. I literally just got done saying that, even while I was holding my hand like this. And yet people still follow what I do rather than what I say. So that is like if there was any 15-second activity that you can do with people to reinforce that campers will be watching your every move and they will do things exactly the way you do them. So it's important that you don't have a different set of rules than what the campers do, because they're going to follow what you do rather than what you say. So that right there, it's such a good activity. Now the OK sign, depending on where you're watching this from, if you're not in the United States, I know sometimes this symbol in different areas of the world is not a great symbol to use. So if that one doesn't work for you, just change it. It could be like your pointer finger and point to your cheek or your chin or whatever. So just choose something, a symbol that would work well for you. But just know, I know that isn't the greatest thing in every culture. So just know that. All right, so so going back to my slide deck here, so this one here, I'm sure many of you followed what I did rather than what I said, and that is an example of mirror neurons in action. There's another great activity that I like to do with people, and it's the old game of Simon Says. And if you go to the Training Wheels YouTube channel, you're going to see a great, I've got a couple of tutorial videos there on how to lead Simon Says with new rules. And it is fantastic. It is my favorite way to, so we changed the rules in Simon Says just a little bit, because in the old version of Simon Says, if you made a mistake, what usually happened? You were out, right? And for me, I always hated that game when I was a kid because I was always the kid that got out first. I'm such a visual learner, and my mirror neurons are usually on fire. And I'm like, even if someone's telling a story, I will sometimes I'll be mirroring their facial expressions and not even know I'm doing it, just because that's how much of a visual learner I am. So I disliked the game of Simon Says when I was a kid because I always got out. So we changed the rules just a little bit to where if you make a mistake, you don't get out, you just give yourself a point. And I love the metaphor around, in life, don't we try to teach people if you make a mistake, try to learn from it and try not to make it again. And in the old version of Simon Says, you don't get that opportunity because you're just out, right? And usually by the end, you've got 3 really invested people that are still in the game and 27 behavior problems off to the side, right? Because once you're eliminated, you are no longer invested in what people do. So go to my YouTube channel and you'll find a couple of really cool tutorial videos on how to lead Simon Says with these new rules. So, all right, I have another activity I want you to do right now in the moment. Everybody get out a piece of paper and a writing utensil really nearby. So that way you've got something that you can use. And I have here the activity that I'm going to do with you. So you need a quick piece of paper and a writing utensil. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off a list of words, okay? But you can't start writing any of the words until I finish reading off the entire list, okay? And then as soon as I'm finished, I want you to write down as many words as you remember me saying, okay? All right, so are you ready? Pens at the ready, make sure it works real quick. You can scribble real quick, make sure it works. All right, don't start writing down any words until I finish the whole list. Here we go. Dream, sleep, night, mattress, snooze, sheet, nod, tired, night, artichoke, insomnia, blanket, night, alarm, nap, snore, and pillow. Ready, go. Write down as many words you remember me saying. All right, I'm watching gallery view. I see some people starting to think a little hard, oh, what did she say? All right. Now what I want you to do is add up all the words, how many words you got, okay? And then just write that number somewhere down on your piece of paper, how many words you got. All right, so I actually said 17 words. So now you know how many I said versus how many you got, okay? So now what I want you to do is I'm gonna go back to my slide deck here, and I'm just curious, how many of you, by show of hands, I've got gallery view open so I can kind of see you all right now as well. How many of you by show of hands got the two words, both of these words, dream and pillow? Raise your hand if you got both of those words. I can see several of you did. All right, now why do you think people got those two words? What is it about those two words? Right? They were the first thing I said and the last thing I said, right? So when I'm working with staff, I love to do activities like this to share with people the art of effective directions. When we're working with kids, we have to make sure that we understand that when we are giving directions, there's some tricks here, some things that we can do to make sure they hear us, okay? So dream and pillow was the first thing I said and the last thing I said. So make sure that you have a good start and a good ending to whatever it is, directions or whatever it is that you want to share with your kids. How many of you got the word night? Raise your hand if you got the word night. Why did you get the word night? I said it 3 times, right? So yeah, so that I call the repetition effect, right? Is that if you've got things, really important things that you want to make sure that your participants hear, repeat it multiple times, and then they will, they'll hear it. Maybe they didn't hear it the first time. Even you, as you look down your list, maybe you only wrote down night 2 times. Maybe you missed one of them, right? How many of you got the word artichoke? Why did you get the word artichoke? Because it was different. I call that the surprise effect. Now, the surprise effect when you're given directions could just be the way that you say things, right? It could just be more emphasis on something, or it could be something completely out of context that just kind of surprises them. Now, I remember in the 6th grade, Mrs. Campbell was my English teacher, and I remember the day that Mrs. Campbell taught us about exclamation points. Now, because she was a good teacher, I really liked her, but she was a little bit monotone, right? So she didn't get overly excited about things when she was teaching, but I remember the day she taught about exclamation points because she wrote up 2 sentences on the board. One was the dog bit my leg with a period at the end, and then the dog bit my leg with an exclamation point. So she was reading off. So when you're reading these in a sentence, you would read this one, the dog bit my leg. And the next one, the dog bit my leg. And she jumped up and down and screamed and made the biggest scene at the front of the room. I remember what she was wearing. It was so different. And it was the surprise effect for me. It was a white shirt with red flowers. And the 6th grade was like well over 35 years ago for me. And so, but I still remember it because of the surprise effect. All right, now how many of you got the word bed? All right, raise your hand if you got the word bed. Anybody? I actually didn't say the word bed. So, but why did several of you just raise your hand that you got the word bed? It's what I call the false memory effect. And so I use this and relate to the camp world is how many of your campers maybe go to other camps in addition to your camp. And so, so it could be that maybe they're doing something, they're not necessarily intentionally breaking a rule, but it's kind of like the other things. A lot of those words were really similar in that list that I read off. And so, so people will fill in the blanks if they ever have questions. So this is a really simple activity you can do with your staff that will be memorable for them because, and in the handout, I put a link to my handout section on my website. The full list of words will be there, but you could also make up your words, your own, and have them all be camp related things if you wanted to and make up your own. Also, if you go back and watch the recording of this, you can jot down all of them as well, but it's in the handout that's on my website as well. All right, understanding behavior preferences. This is one of my favorites to do with staff training. I call it the human continuum activity. And this is really where staff get to understand their behavior preferences and how they can sometimes bounce off of other people. This works well if you ever do any behavioral assessments like DISC or Myers-Briggs or anything like that with your staff. This activity works really well for it. It's my favorite staff training activity. Me as the camp director or as the program manager, it gives me so much information about my staff and what their behavior preferences are, but is also helpful for them. So this one in a virtual space, I use the text box in the annotation section for them to add their name on a continuum. So basically what I do is I come up with 2 different behaviors. Now this Pocket Processor is a tool that I use that is a card set. We carry these on our website, but this card set already has the 2 opposites on them. So you've got avoiding conflict and confronting conflict, learning on my own, learning from others, working as a team, working as an individual. I like to take charge. I like to allow others to lead. So basically, you think about two opposite behaviors. Neither one of them are right or wrong. They're just different. And so then what I do here in the virtual space is I will put those two opposite things in a continuum like this, and then I'll give them weight. So the line down the center, if I were doing this live and in person, I would put a rope or a piece of masking tape down the center of the room and have everyone come and stand on the center of the line. And then I would read off the two behaviors, and then I would have them separate and place themselves somewhere on that continuum. Now the further, I put 1, 2, and 3 further out, so that way the further away from the line you get, the more you prefer that behavior. And so then, you know, people, you can have them use their annotation bar and things like that, to where then if they were to use the text box, then they could place the anywhere, you know, they could, and they could use their names and type their names into the text box. And then when they click off, they can see where other people have also placed themselves. And then you can have them, for the next one, you can have them clear or erase their slide. And then, but then what I like to do too is I'll pick one person. I'm like, okay, Michelle, which is me, but Michelle, I see that you're a more spontaneous person versus a careful planner. How does that show up in your day-to-day? And so now you can also see, look across the line from you, is your closest co-counselor, are they a careful planner, or are they also more spontaneous? And what kind of information does that give you about how you guys are going to work together this summer? Are you going to butt heads on a couple things, or are you going to be so similar that maybe we need to be careful that we're not leaving out the careful planning if we're both really spontaneous people? Because there's pros and cons to both sides, right? And then also, if I'm doing this with my whole staff, I love to see, where am I imbalanced? If I have all spontaneous people and no careful planners, whew, that's going to give me some data to work with for the summer. That if people are rolling their eyes when we have to have a staff meeting or plan something, it's because they all live in this you know, spontaneous world, right? So and then I would just move on to the next one. All right, so let me clear my drawings and then go to the next one. So I'm a self-motivated person, or I'm more motivated by others. Again, you would have them annotate. And for me as a camp director, I love this one because it lets me also look and see, okay, who are my self-motivated people? And then who are the people that might need a little bit something different from me, or might need more from me, right? So it helps me kind of manage who I need to check in with a little bit more regularly than others, and things like that, or who's really good at self-motivating and self-regulating. This one here, I love to know. Who, when you show up to camp every day, are you one that you want no surprises, or you welcome the unexpected? That's really good to know. Now, it's not that people that want no surprises can't do the unexpected things. Of course they can. However, if they are asked to be in a position where they are doing unexpected things all day, everything, it will exhaust them and burn them out way faster than those people that are, I welcome the unexpected. That's camp, it happens. Other people are like, yeah, and I like routine and I like these types of things. So just know that the people that welcome unexpected things, those might be really good people to call upon in times of crisis, because it's naturally lives in their bones, right? Whereas the people that want no surprises, they can do it, but it's going to stress them out if they're in an environment that is really has unexpected things happening often. Okay. And then, you know, and I do probably 10 of them at a time. I express my frustrations, I keep them to myself. Well, I would really like to know that about my co-counselor. If I'm going to be living in a tent with somebody or working really closely with someone, that's really good to know. If someone is really good at expressing it and their closest co-counselor is someone that's good at keeping your frustrations to yourself, that's probably going to end up with some conflict at some point in time. And conflict's not always a bad thing, but if we don't deal with it, then it can turn into bad things. So, and then this one here, naturally, I follow. I avoid conflict, or I confront conflict. It's really good to know as a staff to see everybody on the board. Who are your people that are good at avoiding conflict? Because that means they're not going to come to you when things are going on, right? Or not as readily. They might still, but just know it's going to take a lot extra for them to actually do it. All right, we're closing in on our last few minutes. And so I wanted to make sure I dive into a couple of debriefing activities before we take off. I'm going to buzz through these really quickly just so that we make sure that we get several of them in. And again, you can go back and watch the recording of this, so that way in case I go too fast, you can go back and you can pause and catch up and things like that. So debriefing please, I beg you to leave room for debriefing in your staff training as well as with your campers. My favorite activity to use is the body part debrief because it's such an easy metaphor. Kids as young as 5 years old can get this. They understand. Now, with young kids, I only use one part at a time. With your older kids, and with staff, I use multiple parts. You can use it with really large groups. You can use it with small groups. You can combine it. If you've got only 5 minutes left, but you've got 30 kids that need to share, say, introduce it and then say, hey, turn to a neighbor and share with them which part that you would choose. So everybody gets a chance to share, one final learning or something that they can reflect on throughout the day. This is also pretty easy to create on your own, especially in the virtual format. Just go into Google Images and type in anatomical brain or a hand or something like that. When I show up to do staff training, this is one of my parting gifts when I do staff training with people is I have a little tiny keychain that has hands and feet and a brain and lungs and heart. And I give this to them again to put on their water bottles. And I also give away that little, the stoplight keychain as well. So that way they've got a really good debriefing tool. We do sell these on our website, but again, you can make them easily on your own in the virtual format. Or if this is something, it's a really inexpensive, highly impactful tool that staff could use. You could also just create slides like this that have targeted metaphors that connect with the debriefing question. And then have each person share a response or question. For large groups, you could send them into their breakout rooms. And for smaller groups, you can just have each person go around and share. I don't have time to do this one. This one, action and reflection. Just make sure sometimes keeping people physically engaged in reflection can help create muscle memory and actually aids in long-term retention. It's great for that end of day when everyone's tired anyway, and it helps keep them engaged. I have a thumb ball that I use that has debriefing questions on it that's really good to use in this. It's very participant driven, especially if your staff are tired at the end of the day and they're like, oh, I can't think of one more question to ask, then the ball kind of asks the question for you. And it's called a thumb ball because when you throw it up in the air and you catch it, you look under your thumb and you answer the question that's under your thumb. You can create your own with a beach ball and a Sharpie too. So we carry this, but of course you could make your own. Shuffle left, shuffle right. I don't have time I had a video for this one to show you, but I don't have time to show it. But it's an easy one where it's an up and active one again, where you have people, you say shuffle to the right. And then when someone has something that they want to share, then they can say stop and the whole group will stop in place. You've got a couple of seconds to share your remaining thoughts. And then they say, give a direction, either shuffle to the left or shuffle to the right. Now I've tested this out with the virtual format and it works here as well. So you can just have everybody just kind of shuffle to the right or left. And then if everyone's microphones are off, then they can say stop and then they can share and then they can shuffle to the right. And again, it just adds a little movement to an environment where we're sitting a lot in the virtual space. So it can add a little movement. Later letters is a great one to do with your staff. Provide a variety of postcards with different photos on them. Ask them to pick out a photo that metaphorically represents why they chose to come and work at camp, and then turn it over and write a letter to their really tired mid-July self on why they took this job. And then, of course, deliver it to them halfway through your season. That is one of my favorite. Whenever I do a staff training with a camp, routinely this camp comes back and says, this was our staff's favorite, because you literally give it to them right at the moment when they're just tired and hot and just need a little boost. And then they get a letter from themselves, almost from the universe, with a little piece of advice of what they gave themselves, their former self is now giving them. So that one's a really cool one to do. So nature mandalas. This is one that I've encouraging people to do right now, is to invite your staff, participants, if you're doing anything with your campers now, invite them to go out to nature, even if it's in their own backyard, and create a mandala with natural elements of some sort, and then take a picture of it and share it to you or whoever else. And then when you get back into your next online meeting, have them share their insights or thoughts that they had when they were putting it together, what creativity they put into it, what were they thinking about. That can be a really cool one to do too. And what I love about it is that this is one that I happened upon on a trail even a couple weeks ago, and it just made me smile. I'm like, oh, look what somebody did, and I love it. So so it can be a gift that you give to others that you don't really even know that you're giving to others, right? Also, if you want some other ideas on other nature mandalas, look for Andy Goldsworthy. He's an amazing mandala artist that is pretty well world renowned. So go Google him and find him. He's pretty awesome. All right, advice from a tree, object lessons. There are some great postcards out there, or invite your staff to create your own with metaphors from camp. And so if you read this here, this advice from a tree, it's, you know, stand tall and proud, sink your roots into the earth, be content with your natural beauty, go out on a limb, drink plenty of water, remember your roots, and enjoy the view. So this is just, you know, there's advice from a rock, there's advice from a lake, there's literally, if you type in advice from a in Google Images, you'll come up with tons and tons of different examples, and it could just kind of be a fun one that you can relate to some camp related things that you can share with your staff. And then last but not least, virtual tiny campfires. Who does not love a good campfire? It's what we do at camp. And so right now you can create a virtual campfire with having everyone bring a candle, their favorite s'more ingredients, you know, your marshmallows, your chocolate, and your graham crackers, and everyone bring, you know, your little candle and your matches, and everyone share a reflection or whatever while making and eating a fun snack while you're online with your staff. So it's a way to bring elements of camp to the virtual space while we're in this odd time in history. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much. I hope you got some great ideas today that you might be able to tweak and change a little bit with your, in this weird time in your virtual staff training, or if you are able to do staff training live and in person, I hope you got a couple of great ideas that you can incorporate into your staff training. So I'm going to turn it back over to Carrie. She'll give you instructions on where you can find the recording, how she's going to share it out, and things like that. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for your time this afternoon. Michelle has to run to another training. She is so generously donating her time. So I know a few questions came in that we didn't get to. My apologies on that. One thing that I did drop in the group chat, and just because it won't be available on the recording, when Michelle was talking about doing the thumb ball, there are some really great online spinning wheel tools that you could use to adapt it to be online. I've used them as name pickers for like giving things away, but you don't have to do that. You could fill them in instead of a name with a topic and have people spin them. So that is one suggestion. Like Michelle said, this recording is going to be available. It will be posted on the National ACA COVID-19 online learning and events page as soon as the recording is ready. It'll take us a couple of business days to get that up and going, but please feel free to revisit it and to share it with other staff members that could benefit from this afternoon's training. And there are also other recorded trainings that have been happening over the last few weeks on a variety of different topics. So if you are interested in those, definitely feel free to use that page as a resource. Again, thank you so much. ACA, both New England nationally and our affiliates in New York, New Jersey, and Illinois are here to be a resource for you all during these challenging times. So please reach out if there's anything else we can do to help. But again, it is 2 o'clock. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.